Welcome to howtopam and another Librecad tutorial. Today we're going to talk about lines, angles, and dimensions. So let's get started. We'll just open up Librecad here and let us have a look here at our current drawing. We've got an A4 paper, that's okay, 297 by 210. Our units. We don't need that much precision for what we're doing. Let's just go a couple decimal places. Degrees in angles, millimeters. We don't care for this practice what actual increment we're using here. We could say none for that. The grid, we'll use the grid on. It helps us while we're practicing see where our lines are going in relationship to the units. And we'll use an orthogonal grid. And the default scales will work for starters. If we need to change it later on, we can. Spline lines, we're not going to be using that in this drawing, tutorial, so let's get started with that. Let's go ahead and expand here. Now, we will be using a couple of layers. So let's add some layers here. Let's add the layer of lines. Okay, and for the purpose of this drawing tutorial, let's use nice bright colors so we can see. And let's use a thicker line width so that we can actually see what we're doing. Okay, now that'll do for the lines. Let's add another layer for dimensions. Okay, and again with dimensions, let's use a color that we can actually see, and let's use a little greater width, not as big a width, not as thick a width as the lines themselves, but let's use a little thicker than normal. Okay, now maybe what we'd like to do is maybe put a border around our paper. We're not going to use a block that we've made in some of the other tutorials, not for this practice, but let's use a border so that we can visualize the edge of the paper. So in order to put a border now, we remembered that our paper size is A3, and that's the size right there, 297 by 210. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the rectangle tool, and this will be 0, 0, so we could start our border right on that point. So let's go ahead and type in, it says here in the command line, give us the first corner, right? So let's go and type 0, 0, 0, 0, and it says give us the second corner. So now we're going to have to be, in order for a 5 millimeter border around each edge, we're going to have to be 10 mils smaller in both directions than our paper. And our paper was 297 in the X. So let's go 287. That's 10 mils smaller, 10 units smaller. And in the Y direction, it was 210, so let's go 200. And there you go. Now, what I did here, as you can see, let's go ahead and release the tool by right-clicking the mouse. There we go, we got rid of the tool. Now you see I put the border on the dimensions line, and I don't want it there. Okay, so let's use this zoom all to bring it into perspective, and let us move that to a different layer. Okay, so what we'd like to do is, this is good to see here, we can go to properties, and we can go to the properties of that line, and it says here, let's select what we want. There we go. Okay, now it tells me it's on dimensions. You see, we took this yellow layer, it says we're on dimensions. We'd sooner go to 0 for that. Okay, so let's say okay. Now you see it turned gray, and it put that border on layer 0 here. That's where we want it. Okay, so now if you like, let's go ahead and save our drawing. and let's save that as lines and dimensions. Okay, I already have one that exists, but I'm going to overwrite it, so let's just say to that, and we've saved it as lines and dimensions. Okay, now let's go on to the lines here. Okay, so let's start drawing some lines, and what we'll do is let's maybe perhaps begin by typing LI in the command line and press enter. Now let's put our first point at, say, 10 units and 10 units. Okay, and the next point from that, let's go 40 units. Point 10, and let's say 10 units. Okay, and there you go. Now let's specify another point. Okay, so for another point we must use the relative sign so that we can go relative from this point. Otherwise it'll be measured off of 0, and we don't want to do that. That would be absolute. So in order to get a relative, we're going to put the relative sign in there in the command by pressing the shift key and the 2 key to get the at symbol. And let's do, say, let's say 25.30 in the X direction, and let's do a rise of maybe 40. Okay, there we go. Now again, we could add another point here easily, that relatively we can go at, from that point, let's go 0. Let's go 23.5 in the X, and let's go 0 in the Y direction. Okay? Now, if we want to go up again, we could go actually, we could say that we want to go 50 units this way at an angle. That would be 90. That would be 0. Okay, so let's say we want to go 50 units long at 45 degrees. Let's put that in there. Let's say we go at 50 at an angle of 45. There you go. Okay, and again, we could go either directly up in the Y by choosing 0 in the X and go straight up in the Y, or we could signal the same thing by putting at 40 units at an angle of 90 degrees. Okay, and there we go, it's the same thing. Okay, so that would be 0x at 60 units, or 40 units, sorry, or it would be 40 units at 90 degrees. Okay, now let's say we want to come over here. Remember, this is 0 and this is 90, so in here is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay, we're coming around. So we want to go out this way. Let's go 80 units. Sorry, we need to go relative. Relative 80 units. We don't need the comma in there because we're going to go degrees at 0 degrees, and look at that. Okay, so again, to relative, let us go let us go 0 in the x, and let us go 30 in the y. Okay, now let's start coming back this way. How are we going to get back this way? Well, we could just use a negative sign to travel in this direction. Okay, so let us go back. Let's say we wanted to come up here somewhere. If we knew this angle, this is 90 degrees, and with 45 past 90 would be 135, and another 45 would be 180. So I'll tell you what, to make it easy, let's go relative. Let's go let's go 60 units at an angle of 135. Okay, now let's say we want to travel downwards this way here. Okay, so what can we do? Well, if we knew that this was 180 and we want to head in this direction, then we must add 190, 200, 210, you see, that sort of thing. So let us go 75 units long. Sorry, again, let's go relative 75 units at an angle of, let's say 210. Okay, there we go. Now, do we need to keep using angles? Let's say we wanted to go over here. Well, we could do relative. We could go down. We're going to be going backwards from x a little bit. So let's go 20 units. Let's go negative 20 units in the x to go back. And instead of an angle, we use negative 20x. And let's go downwards, negative y. Let's go 47.5 units. Okay. Now, you've got the idea there. Okay, so if we want to come over here now, we're going to go negative in the x direction, aren't we? So let's go relative from that point. Let's go negative 40 in the x. And let's use an angle, okay? Instead of being 0 in the y, okay, instead of changing our y units to stay on that plane, we could do 180 degrees, because this is 0, this is 90, and this is 180. Okay, so we could go negative 40 units at an angle of 180 degrees. I'm sorry, let's undo that. Just type undo, and let's do that again. Let's go relative negative 40 in the x at an angle of 0 degrees. There we go. Okay, 0 degrees. Now let us head down here to close up. Okay, so we could come straight down if we like. So let's go relative there. Let's go 0 in the x, and let's go 87.5, and we better put a negative there, eh? Negative. Okay, and there we are there. And now we want to close this up. We don't need to do that. We can just snap to the end. You see here we've got snap to the end. So when we come in there, there we are. So we can just go ahead and just snap that. Or I'll tell you what else we could do. is let's type undo there. Okay, now how are we going to get that without snap? Let's write close. And you see, close works there too. Okay, rather than snapping to the end, we could close. Okay, let's right mouse click to get rid of the tool, the line tool. And there you go, we've done a bunch of different lines in different ways. Now, we could save that. And we can go ahead and switch our layers to the dimensions. And let's have a look at how dimensions work, okay? Let's go ahead over here and choose aligned dimensions. And a good place to start, perhaps, make sure you're on free snap. Okay, and snap on end so that it jumps to the end of the lines. Free snap allows you to move out with your lettering, your text. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do that. And you see we can move out here. Nice to keep your text reasonably close, but yet keep it where it's not unlegible. Okay, so let's just click, and there we go. Now, again, we can go from this all the way up to here, and it would be nice, again, to keep them relatively the same distance, so we have some uniformity. Now, let's just say we wanted to know this angle in here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click to release that tool, and we're going to go and get another tool called the angular tool, okay? And I'm going to choose the first line, and then it'll ask us for the second line, see here? So I'm going to choose this line and this line, and there, it's as simple as that. Gives me the angle between the two. Okay, now if you're still not satisfied and would like to add a length to those lines with the angle out here, we could do that as well. Let's right mouse click to get a menu. Let's choose the aligned, and let us go there, and let us put it there. Okay, and we can go here and bring those in there. Okay, now again, we could go here, and we don't want to be outside of our border, so let's come inside here and put that in there. Okay, now if we'd like, we can go ahead and right mouse click and choose an angular, and choose this line and this line, and I could pull that back a little bit so that we can see where it's legible. Okay, now again, we could go back and choose aligned, and we could choose this one and this one, and again, we don't want to go over our border at the top there and stay within our lines here, so we're going to make that one tight right there. Okay, now I could go ahead and put a line here and a line here. Okay, we know this is 90 degrees, but let's say that we wanted to find out what this is. We go ahead and choose that line and this line. Okay, and look at that. Okay, we know this appears to be 90 degrees, but we can go ahead and choose that and that, and you see what we've got here. Now that'll put 90 there, or we can flip over here. Okay, just like that. Again, if you like, right mouse click, choose aligned, go ahead, and we could put a dimension there. We could put a dimension here or in here. Okay, we could go ahead and choose angular again. We could choose this line, You can see that there. Okay. How about these two? Let's choose that and that, and we can put one on the inside, the outside. Okay. We don't know how long this line is here. Well, let's choose aligned, and let's go from there to there, and let's pull that back to where we can see how long that is. Okay? And again, we want to keep our dimensions where they're legible. We put one out here for that. Why? Well, so that we can put an angular in here. Okay? Just like that. Okay? Now, you don't know the length of this one. Well, that's easy enough. Let's throw an angle in here while we're at it so that people can see what angle that is. Okay? And let's go ahead, and we don't have an angle here. People might wonder what that's all about. Let's go ahead and take this, and let's put that where we can see it. Okay? And here, what is that angle? Let's go ahead and take this one and that one, and maybe we'd fit that in there. Okay? Now again, let's go ahead and take a line. We're going to have to measure this line to there. We can put that out there. This line to there, and put that in there. Okay, let's right mouse click, get rid of that tool. Save your work. Now, of course, we could add a little text to that in another layer if we chose to do so. Okay? But we don't really need to on this. We'll look at another tutorial for adding text. So there you go. There's some lines and some angles and some dimensions. Okay? So this has been a quick little tutorial about lines, angles, and dimensions. Hope you enjoyed this Librecad tutorial on lines and dimensions by howtopam. Thank you for watching.